Now we're going to discuss some disorders that relate to what we just talked about with neurons. So there's a disorder called multiple sclerosis, or MS. In fact, you probably know of someone who has it or have heard of some of the symptoms of it. So this image here is someone with MS, and some of the things you might see is the person has difficulty walking or controlling their movement. Now let's go into the reasoning behind this disorder. What's causing it? It turns out that it's damaged myelin. Remember I was explaining how myelin is the fatty covering around the axon. And the myelin is supposed to help the action potential, that electrical impulse, go down the axon efficiently and fast so that it can reach the next destination, in this case, a muscle fiber. So this is a healthy neuron with full myelin, so the signal goes really fast. Over here, this is the neuron of someone with multiple sclerosis. So notice right here, the myelin's damaged. You get these smaller plaques instead of the full healthy myelin. So the electrical impulse, the action potential is coming down and is going to basically slow down here or even get stopped in some cases. So the signal is blocked because of damaged myelin and it doesn't make it all the way to the muscle. Or if it does, it's very weak. So therefore, the muscle is not going to respond properly to the neuron. Remember, this motor neuron is from the brain and spinal cord, so it's what's activating the muscles to move. And you can see this in someone with MS. You can actually see this starting to happen in some of the motor neurons in the brain. So if you go back to the symptoms, remember the symptoms were difficulty moving, so one of the first things you start to see is the muscle control loss. So again, because it's these motor neurons that are going to innervate the muscle, they're the ones that are not working properly. And then as MS develops further, you might even see some vision loss. So not only is it in the motor neuron, but then the damaged myelin starts to become a problem in, for instance, the sensory neurons in the eye. So therefore, your eye can't receive the sensory signals as well because it won't get sent to the brain because of the damaged axon. So then you might be wondering, well, can the myelin get replaced or how does that repair? And it turns out that even though neurons themselves, once a neuron is dead, it cannot regenerate for the most part, myelin and the axons actually can regenerate. So we're going to talk a little bit about neuroregeneration. So this has actually become really useful, for instance, in spinal cord injuries, where the neuron cell body is still okay, that's still intact, it's just the axon and the myelin that gets damaged. So imagine you have a damaged axon here, right? So you see in yellow, it's broken apart, and then the myelin around it is still present. So over time, what's going to happen is we're going to want to regenerate the axon. And so how that happens is that over here, you start to build the myelin around it. The myelin creates this almost tunnel, if you will, that protects the new axon growing back. So notice once we have the myelin surrounding it, the axon can start to grow back through it. And then hopefully you get the full regeneration of the axon over time. And what helps this new myelin form is, remember we talked about the neuroglia. And remember, in the neuroglia, in the peripheral nervous system, it's the Schwann cells that actually regenerate the myelin. They're the ones that make this new myelin that allow the axon to grow through again. So this is a form of neuroregeneration. So again, the neuron wasn't completely damaged, but we're just regenerating and regrowing the axon. So just to summarize what we have so far, we talked about gross anatomy of the nervous system, which includes gray and white matter and the nerves. Neurons work together in reflexes and circuits. And finally, disorders of the nervous system occur which affect functioning, but they may be reparable.